بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. خب, alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of epistemology. This is our last session in this semester. We continue with the third article of Usul-e Falsafeh and Ravesh-e Realis. Last week we discussed the points by Allame, and then I said inshallah we will discuss next week the point by Ayatollah Mutahari about different theories among philosophers about sighting, about viewing. So Ayatollah Mutahari in the footnote says there were two major views among early philosophers. One was, we have them also in Bidayah, in the discussion about mental existence. Nazariye intiba', you could say the theory of impression. The second view was Nazariye khuruj sha'a. So some radiations, some rays come out of the eye and hit the object of vision. So those who believed in intiba' or impression, they had the idea that our eyes and the lens in our eyes are very transparent, very smooth, and when something happens to be in front of or before our eyes, then we would have an imprint of it or a kind of image of it on the surface of our eye. Aristotle and his followers had this idea, and among Muslim philosophers, Ibn Sina had this idea. So it is just a kind of imprint or image of the object of vision on our eyes. But the second group had the idea that our eyes produce radiations like fire, like light, which has radiation, or stars. Our eyes also have radiation. Something come out of the eyes, hit the object. Then they themselves had, of course, different views. Some of those people who believed in this radiation coming out, they thought that it's like a kind of pyramid. The head, the top of the pyramid in the eye, like a dot, then when it goes out, it becomes wider. So the widest part would be on the object which we want to see. Some believe it's like a cylinder, so it's not like a pyramid. Anyway, people like Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi, like Plato, they had this idea. Ayatollah Mutahari later says Sadrul Muta'allihin, famous Muslim philosopher, had a different view. He didn't accept any of these two theories because he said these two theories only undertake explanation of the physical aspect of vision. What happens in the physical world? What happens between the object and our eyes? But according to his idea of unity, of aqil و ma'qul, unity between the knower and what is known, and also between khas and mahsus, the one that perceives and what is perceived, he said that viewing is, this is very important, viewing is an innovative action of the soul. Whatever happens in the eyes, nervous system, brain are just to prepare. In the end of the day, viewing is different from all these things. I read for you this sentence. این دانشمند با اثبات نظریه معروف خود در باب اتحاد عاقل و معقول و اتحاد خاص و محسوس ثابت کرد که دیدن یک نوع فعالیت ابداعی نفس است. He proved that seeing is one kind of action of the soul which is ibda'i, is innovative, initiated by the soul. که عمل طبیعی یا فیزیکی مقدمه آن است. Physical actions that take place in our eyes, in our nervous system, in our brain are just prerequisites for that. They prepare for that. و پس از انجام یافتن عمل طبیعی, that عمل طبیعی is needed, but after that happens, نفس با قدرت فعاله خود صورت مماثل شیء محسوس را در سقع خود ابداع و انشا می نماید. Soul with its creative power, it's creation, it's an action. When you think of act, you shouldn't think of act like acts of muscles. This is act which is ibda'i, which is creative. So the soul creates an image similar to what was seen, what was perceived, what was. Also the same is for hearing, or smelling. It's not only seeing. Creates an image similar to what was perceived, but where this is created, in its own realm, in the nafs. It's kayfa nafsani. In 4th volume of Aswar, when Mullah Sadra comments and refutes the idea of Ashabul Intiba', the first group, he says, وَهَذَا بَعْدَ تَمَامِهِ أنما يدل على انطباع الشبح فيه لا كون الإبصار به. He says, even if we accept this theory, if we suppose that it's a complete theory, the maximum it can show is that shabah, a similar image, without, of course, the details, without specific aspects, will take place, will be imprinted in eyes. This is the maximum. In eyes, an image takes place. But it doesn't show that seeing is because of this. Seeing is different. So one point is whether this theory or that theory is good to explain the optical side of it, but the other thing is that what is the reality of vision? The reality of vision is different. Sorry. خب. Then about the other theory about rays of light coming out of the eyes, he says وَنَحْلُ لَا نُنْكِرُ أَيْضًا تحقق الشعاع من البصر إلى المرئي صورته لكن نقول لابد في الرؤية من حصول الصورة المرئي للنفس. We also don't deny that some radiations may come from the eye to what is seen, what its face is seen. We don't have an issue with that, if it is correct, of course. Our issue is something else. Our issue is not as such about the first theory or second theory. What we say is that for vision, we need to have an image of what is seen for the soul. What happens in the eye is different. لابد في الرؤية من حصول صورة المرئي, image of, for example, that rose flower which is seen for nafs. Therefore, none of these theories of خروج الشعاع or انتباه explains the reality of seeing for Mullah Sadra. Ayatollah Mutahari says, according to research done by scientists, none of those theories were complete, and our nafs acts like a camera. Actually, maybe they made camera from our eyes. They made a camera by looking at the way our eyes work and operate. So it's the light which is coming from the object to the lens, and as you know, it's upside down, and the scientific explanation of what happens in the eyes is now clear, is not controversial, but the idea of Mullah Sadra remains intact, remains valid, that none of these are explaining the reality of vision. Ayatollah Mutahari says, خواننده محترم می‌داند که نظریه جدید در باب ابصار هرچند دو نظریه معروف بالا را باطل می‌کند، اما نظریه صدر المتألهین راجع به اینکه این گونه اعمال طبیعی و فیزیکی حقیقت ابصار را نمی‌تواند توجیه کند به قوت خود باقی است. جوابی که در متن به اشکال داده شده روی این نظریه است. So the idea of Mullah Sadra remains intact. That's the main point, that vision is different from physical, chemical things that happen before our nafs is able to have the vision. And Allama Tabataba'i's response in the text is based on Mullah Sadra's view. Now we continue our discussion of the main points by Allama Tabatabai. One objection is that someone may say, when we look at the lines or surface or a physical three-dimensional object, we don't see characteristics of matter. We don't see. We see as if it's muttasil, it's continuous, it is connected. We don't see gap. So we don't see, but they exist. So our understanding is not accurate. They say گاهی که خط و سطح و جسم را متصل واحد می‌بینیم، اجزاء ماده را دیده و فواصل یا خلأ را نمی‌بینیم. We see as one connected line or surface, but we don't see gaps in between. نه این که دیده باشیم فواصل نیست. Not that we see there is no gap. We don't see the gap. If we were able to see that there is no gap, then it was a kind of positive thing, that we see there is no gap. Of course, it could be in conflict with scientific findings. But now we don't see it. Means we are even not able to judge about it. And then we think there are things that are there without characteristics of material objects. But you have not seen, not that they are really free from material characteristics. Allama Tabatabai says, we don't have issue with this point. Our problem is with the conclusion that this person or these people want to make. در صحت این بیان سخنی نداریم. ولی به خلاف انتظار شخص اشکال کننده نتیجه این بیان به نفع ماست. So the main point is there, but we don't have any issue, but the conclusion is to our favor, not to their favor. ما خط و سطح و جسم را بی شکاف می‌بینیم. We see line, space and physical objects without gap. So in the context of our understanding, they have no gap, they are connected. در ظرف ادراک ما سطح و خط و جسم بی شکاف موجودند. Okay? So in the context of our understanding, they have no gaps. به عبارت دیگر که شخص اشکال کننده بیشتر میپسندد. Let us put it in the way that the person who objects would be happier. They are more satisfied with this kind of language. We can say ما در مورد ادراک خط و سطح و جسم میپنداریم چیزهایی بی خواص ماده موجود شده‌اند. We think that in the case of lines and surfaces and physical objects, there are things that are there without characteristics of material things. In our understanding, they exist without characteristics of material things. یعنی در ظرف پندار ما چیزهای بی خواص ماده موجود شدند و این چیزها موجودند. And they exist because of just mistake in our understanding. Okay? That's the way they will be very happy. زیرا خطا و صواب و پندار و حقیقت مفاهیمی هستند نسبی و قیاسی. These are relational. Relational is better than relative. So we compare what we have understood with the real world, with the external world, and if they match, they are correct and true, otherwise no. خب even if in the real or external world there is no continuity and connection, there are lots of gaps, at least you accept that in our understanding they have continuity. Then he says we can say this also about some of the psychological or some of the spiritual things, like اراده و کراهت, when you like or dislike, when you want or don't want, knowledge, affirmation. We find these things in ourselves without characteristics of material things, like being divided, for example, or being changeable. So these are also not material. Also, we can say this about intellectual images that we have. They are also, for example, kulli, universal, but in the material world we don't have anything universal. Anything is particular, is personal. So to have things which are kulli, to have things which are not changeable, means these are not material. Then before I go to the next argument of Allama, so the point of Allama is this. He wants to say that you have to accept that we have images, we have understanding, we have some perceptions that are there for our nafs without having characteristics of material things. At the moment, the question seems to me, of course, this is me, I might be wrong, but it seems that the focus of Allama is on proving existence of immaterial knowledge in different forms, hissi, khiyali, aqli, as we said before. The focus right now is not on understanding things as they are. That's another issue. We want to show that our nafs is immaterial because it has understanding which is immaterial. Why our understanding is immaterial? Because it has characteristics which are different from characteristics of material things. Even if you yourself say that, for example, the things outside are not connected, this is connected, for Allama this is welcomed, because he wants to say that we have immaterial images, immaterial understanding. The issue of correspondence is another issue, that how nafs is working, how nafs is able to create an image similar to what is outside. The next argument is more focused on change. Anything outside changes, but knowledge can remain fixed. For example, something you have seen 70 years ago. I think Allama refers maybe to his own experience, that maybe something he had seen when he was a child. And now after tens of years, you have the same understanding, the same image is there. But nothing in the world, nature remains the same in 70 years. Even even for a second, but we are not able to understand the difference every second. But every year, every 10 years, we can understand the differences. So he says, another argument, در مورد علم تنها یک نگاه کافی است. With respect to knowledge, only one look, one consideration is enough. If we look carefully with clear conscience, we would realize that the image, the scientific image or image that we have for understanding and change are not coming together. In philosophical terms, we can say knowledge is something, change is something else. Material things are always changeable, especially according to Harakat Jawhari. They are changeable even in their essence. But knowledge is fixed. He says, if it's difficult for you, so let us go together step by step and make it more simple. He says, for example, consider different types of knowledge, such as knowing and remembering. When we know something, we come to know something, and then we come back and remember it, and we say, despite passage of time, this is the same thing. Then we forget, another time we remember, and then we say it's the same thing. If these two had not remained the same, how we could say we remembered the same thing? When you say that you remembered the same thing, means those must have remained the same. You are a new encounter with the same thing. So he says, if this aspect of not changing was not there, تحقق معرفت و تذکر معنا نداشت. We were not able to say that we came to know it and then we remembered it. And we know that sometimes during 70 years or more or less, many of the things in our body have changed. Our nervous system, brain, they have changed. But our knowledge remains the same. Then he says, some people may say, yes, our body goes through changes. Our brain goes through changes. But these changes are very gradual and subtle. And anything that is dying, for example, anything is, finishing, it's quickly replaced with a new thing. You don't feel the difference. You think it's the same brain, the same nervous system, but things have changed. He says, خاصه جزء تازه که مشاکل خاصه جزء کهنه می باشد به جای خاصه در گذشته قرار می گیرد. So, for example, if there was a cell which died, a new cell takes its place very smoothly without any gap. You think no change has happened, but in reality there has been change. This is what they may answer. But as you see, the answer is not solving the problem. They bring also an example as a support. So they say, for example, suppose you have a river. You think the water of river is the same, but at each moment new water is coming and taking the place of the old. New water is coming and taking the place of old water. You don't see the difference, but in reality it's new. Everything is fresh. So these people who are scientists or people who want to bring scientific ideas to philosophy, they say our nervous system is like this, like a river which is changeable all the time. If you see your picture on a surface of river, شما عکس خود را در سطح آب تماشا کنید. Sometimes even you use it as a mirror. You want to, for example, see if your face is okay, your hair, beard. You can use water, surface of the river, as a mirror. But does it mean that water is the same? No. So they want to say the brain is also like this. Our answer again is clear. We don't want to deny physical changes in the brain or nervous system. We don't want to deny changes in the physical material objects. All what we want to say is about this sentence. سخن ما فقط مربوط به مفهوم یک جمله است. Only we want to talk about one sentence. ما میپنداریم این تازه همان کهنه است. It appears to us, we think, this new and that old are the same. For us, in the context of our understanding, they are the same. If you use physical, material language, you cannot say how they are the same. As I said, the focus of Allama is not about correspondence. He says, در ظرف این پندار تازه و کهنه یکی هستند و این وحدت با مادیت ادراک نمی سازد. In the context of our thoughts, the old and the new are the same, and this unity would not match with materiality of the ادراک, understanding. البته چنان که گفته شد این ادراک نسبت به خارج می تواند خطا و پوچ بوده باشد، نه در پیش خود و در ذات. If you compare it with what is outside, maybe it's mistake. We can discuss about this later. But this exists. This unity exists. Our focus right now is to say that we have something which is not material. As I said about continuity, ittisal was the same. We understand things with continuity, connection, and this is not outside. You say it's not outside, okay, better for us. So we want to say that we have some kinds of experiences, some kinds of understanding, and also there are other things in our soul which are not material. They don't follow the rules of and laws of material things. بنا به عقیده این دانشمندان تحقق تصدیق در جهان امکان پذیر نباید باشد. تصدیق in contrast to tasawwur. According to these scientists, it's not possible to have any affirmation, any tasdeeq. Why? Because tasdeeq means to say that we have mawzu, mahmul, subject, predicate, and we say that this predicate is united with this subject. There is unity between predicate and subject. But in the physical world, by the time you want to talk about something, it has already changed. زیرا هنگامی که ذهن ما موضوع را فرض کرد, because when our soul thought about subject, تا رفت محمول را آورده و باز کند, موضوع به واسطه تحول از میان رفته و موضوع تازه جایگزین او خواهد بود. So when the soul brings subject and wants to bring something as predicate for that, by the time it goes back to the subject is changed and another thing has taken place. هیچ پاسخی به هیچ پرسشی، هیچ ابطالی به هیچ اثباتی، هیچ ذیلی به هیچ صدری ارتباط نخواهد داشت. If we go by laws of physics and material things, when someone asks a question, by the time you want to answer, that is changed. If you want to refute or to prove something, you think about the subject, when you want to bring an argument for or against, the subject is changed. You start with something, by the time you want to attribute something to it, it's changed. البته هیچگاه وجدان سالم زیر بار این گونه تشکیک و سفسطه نخواهد رفت. Of course, a healthy mind would never accept such kind of doubts and fallistic approach, because we believe that we are able to think, to judge, to argue for and against, to remember things despite decades of time difference. This is part of our experience and you have to be able to explain our experience. Then he mentions another objection. He wants to make sure all the potential objections are answered. ممکن است گفته شود که ذهن ما و فکر ما از آنجا که خودش نیز خاصیت مغزی و با مدرک خود هم لنگه بوده و هر دو با هم سوار ماده مغز می باشند، از جهت سرعت حرکت و تحول با مدرک خودش مساوی است و پیوسته مدرک خود را ثابت می انگارد. چنان که اگر دو جسم را با حرکت متشابه فرض کنیم که از حیث جهت و سرعت حرکت با هم مساوی بوده باشند، نسبت به همدیگر تغییر پیدا نکرده و در یک حال ثابت خواهند بود. You know, imagine you are traveling and two people are on the train. In the train, the train is going fast, maybe 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers. Some trains go, several hundred kilometers per hour. But if two people are in the same train, they can easily talk to each other. One can give a cup of water to the other person without any difficulty, as if the train is not moving. They feel they are in the fixed position. You are, for example, 1 meter away from the other person. This remains the same. What makes this experience possible is that you are moving, but with the same speed and the same direction. It's like not moving. If you were not moving, you were outside the train. Actually, always we are moving, because Earth is also moving. And we don't feel we are moving because we are all on the Earth and we move with the same speed. Anyway, if you are not moving, or you are moving with the same space and direction, you feel you have fixed position. So they say maybe our mind, our thoughts are changing like our brain, because they believe these are material things, understanding, mind, etc. Everything they think it's like brain. So they are moving, changing, similar to the brain, and because there is the same speed, then we don't notice the change. The answer by Allama is in my words, so I want to paraphrase what Allama says. In the end of the day, do you have an understanding without change, an understanding of something being fixed or not? You are telling how this happens, these are not relevant. Are you able to understand that this thing is the same thing that you met 70 years ago, or the same person you met 70 years ago, or not? Even if you were alive 400 years, 500 years, we could remember the same thing. For example, a place I went 400 years ago, and now I say it's the same place. سخن ما در موضوع همین پندار و انگاشته همان است که در پاسخهای گذشته گفتیم. Our point is the same as what we said about previous objections and responses that we had to the objections. و گذشته از آن در مورد دو حرکت مشابه برای این سکون نسبی اگر واقعیتی قائل نشویم تأثیری ندارد، و اگر واقعیتی قائل شویم در جهان خارج از ما یک موجودی ثابت پیدا خواهد شد که خاصه تغییر ماده را ندارد، و این اشکالی است بر مادیین نه بر ما. Moreover, you say that there are similar motions, and because of these similar motions, then two objects are relatively fixed. If you believe that there is something fixed in the material world, this is another problem for you, because there is something which doesn't have characteristics of matter, which is including change. If they say, no, we don't have fixed situation, then okay, you haven't accepted anything as sukun, as lack of motion. So if you accept it, you have more problem. If you don't accept it, again, the main point is what we said. In the end of the day, we are able to understand something without change. What is the method? What is the mechanism? What happens in the brain? Those are irrelevant. We have such ability to understand things without change. Therefore, nafs must be immaterial, because something which is material cannot understand something which is not changed. Okay, we reached, alhamdulillah, another point that Allama is going to make. This is a turning point. It's a beginning of another discussion. So we stop here, and we thank Allah that we were able to have few sessions on introduction to Islamic theory of knowledge. We just managed to introduce the topics. We had 2 lessons on philosophical instructions by Ayatollah Misbah, and then few sessions on Usul-e Falsafeh wa Ravesh-e Realis, based on suggestions of some brothers. I think it was a group who suggested through Mr. Zuhdi. We try to continue Usul-e Falsafeh wa Ravesh-e Realis, at least to finish the discussion about idrak. So there are few articles, as I said, that inshallah we will try to discuss. But this would be not official, but Mr. Zuhdi said brothers are interested in continuing, so we can inshallah continue. For the next semester, I accepted only 1 unit, 1 subject to teach, because I want to continue this inshallah, and that is Introduction to Transcendent Philosophy. This is a prerequisite course for Shawahid al-Rububiyyah. Inshallah later you will study Shawahid al-Rububiyyah, the main text, but we are going to study inshallah the book by Mr. Ubudiyat. May Allah inshallah increase his tawfiq. And this book is called خطوط کلیه حکمت متعالیه, General Outlines of Transcendent Philosophy. This is 1 volume, and it is extracted from 2-volume book by him, which is Introduction to Transcendent Philosophy, درآمدی به نظام حکمت صدرائی. So in this 1 volume, which they at the beginning say it can be used for PhD students. PhD students of philosophy, and as 2 units. So it's a high level book. Inshallah we will discuss this book next semester inshallah, but we will continue Usul-e Falsafeh wa Ravesh-e Realis inshallah. Whoever is willing and interested, they can inshallah take part, and inshallah trusting Allah, if we are alive we will continue. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Now you're welcome. Now there is a question about exam. So for exam is whatever basically we discuss in the class, and I think we all together had 10 sessions. Unfortunately it coincided with some holidays and some of my trips, so we only had 10 sessions. But inshallah if you have notes, so you know we discussed 5-6 sessions about epistemology in general. Then I think we had 2 sessions on philosophical instruction by Ayatollah Misbah, and maybe 3 sessions on Usul-e Falsafeh wa Ravesh-e Realis. It shouldn't be difficult for you to prepare for exam. Do you have any question about exam? Also, there was a point in Mr. Zohri's email about Tangaza